We're back. The Caves of Steel, Book 1 of the Robot series. We are on Chapter 8. We are going to get into tons of stuff. This book really picked up. I asked you earlier, you said you still love it. It even gets better as you get into this part.
I'm literally itching to finish this book. Mm-hmm. I think I'm at like... I'll actually tell you the percentile that I'm at.
Next time we have these talks, we're going to be done. I read it a long time ago.
86%.
86% right now, so yeah, you're going to finish it.
I'm finishing it tonight.
Yeah. By the way, what we covered today, hopefully we land this plane well. Officially, this is my favorite Asimov book that I've read. Because we just read Foundation, a month ago. We just finished the whole Foundation series. Some of them I hadn't read. But I always debated in my head, do I like Caves of Steel or Foundation first?
This is so much better.
I know, I like this more.
It's even funnier.
And it's more applicable to real life and stuff, as much as I'd like the cool plotting and the coolness of the Foundation. I don't know, this just has philosophically deeper things, and like you said, just funnier things, better written things.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. I have a note here, but we'll get to the great conversation at the end with the yeast guy. But right now, in Chapter 8, we are about to have our detective here, Mr. Baley, drop a bomb. You want to take it?
You want to take it, or I want to take it?
You can go if you want, I mean...
basically, because we make it into Spacer Town, and he's talking to,
we're all freshly washed and all.
Yeah, he wanted to go into Spacer Town to, like, get an idea of the crime scene and to possibly look at the body, just the typical police, detective stuff. So who he's talking to, I forgot the name of, but basically he's like, Dr. Falstaff.
That long name. Dr. Fastolf.
So he's talking to him, and he's like, I have decided, for whatever reason, that there hasn't been a murder.
Yeah, Baley says this.
Yeah. It's all a lie.
Baley realizes, or thinks he's been tricked.
He sees a photo of Daneel on top of everything. And he sees a photo of the guy that they killed.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't see a photo of Daneel. He sees Daneel, and he sees a photo of the guy they killed. And he's like, wait, you were literally made in the image of your creator?
Yeah, Dr. Sarton made Daneel in his own image.
Yep. And he does reference the Bible, and Daneel's like, I do not understand what is funny about this.
Yeah. Yeah. No robo irony.
And so, basically he's like, the doctor's not dead. He's right here. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, that's a hilarious twist. Like, he was very confident in the fact that there really was no murder at all. He just faked it. And it gets into a whole thing of, did you actually see? Because his own police commissioner, who he wires and he, holograms him into this meeting on Zoom. On
Zoom?
Yeah, to have all this... talk here, and he said, and his boss's jaw dropped.
The logic behind having his commissioner on Zoom is that if he's right, and this guy is the guy that they're trying to investigate, and he isn't a robot, then if the Spacers wanted to try to bury any of this stuff and kill him, there would be a witness all the way back in the city that they wouldn't be able to get rid of.
Yeah, It's a reference to a cool line from Daneel, our robot here, where he says that he studied human psychology and sociology of the Earthlings, and so how he acted in the shoe store, that they all look to authority figures. If he was just bold with the gun, scaring them away, he knew it would work. Well, now we get Baley saying he knows that these Spacers, they think super logically, they're going to hear him out in this discussion, but only if there is an actual discussion with extra people. That really, they could just, like you said, kill him, make him disappear.
Yeah, he'd just disappear.
Because this plot's so weird. Why would they let this come out?
It's also like this is trying to peg them for the murder, where they're trying to peg someone on. Yeah. Like, so there is a little bit of politics where he's like, if I can turn this where it's a Spacer or some Spacer conspiracy, then we don't have to worry about it or any of the repercussions. Like, we've caught them. Yeah. And they'll have to figure it out and
because there was the whole play with, are they going to have to get paid by even the White House for this? How does this work? Because the Spacers are so technologically superior, they could destroy the whole world at any moment.
Intergalactic.
Yeah, it's an intergalactic incident. And so
I like that.
Yeah, That's the word you're looking for last time.
Thank you.
And so Baley says there was no murder. The guy faked his death, and the guy standing next to us is not a robot. He's actually the frickin' guy that you're claiming to be murdered. Because this guy's it can't be a robot. He's too human. He's too human-like. He literally
says, they don't smoke on their hygienic outer worlds or drink or have any human vices. No wonder our Daneel can play the robot as well as he does. They're all robots out there to begin with.
Yeah, hilarious. I do love that. Yeah, and of course everybody was shocked and confused by this theory. They all thought it was the dumbest thing ever, but they actually, hear him out to his... It go as suspected. They let him lay out his logic for it.
Dr. Fastov stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna... Fastov.
Dr. F. You can call him
Dr. Fastov. Mm-hmm. He totally lets him do his whole thing, and then he's like, I assure you that the essence of the robot mind lies in a completely literal interpretation of the universe. And, well, first he tells him, like, no, trust me, this guy's a robot.
Yeah.
And he's like, are you a robotics expert, Mr. Baley? And he's like, nope.
Yeah. It's like, I am just an earthling, in a way.
Because I don't remember, was this before or after when, so, like, in order to prove that Daneel's a robot,
yeah, that comes after this, of course. They make him lay out his whole damn long argument.
Yeah, but also, so they bring up this the blaster thing. Mm-hmm. So he's like, one of the reasons I know he's not a robot is because he pulled a blaster on this crowd. Yeah. In this like small incident that we just touched on in the last one,
shoe store,
where it was it's like a shoe store riot. It could have been a riot. Mm-hmm. And he's like, but did Daneel actually harm anyone? And he's like, no, technically he didn't, but it was wrong of him to even pull the blaster out and point it at people and threaten them. So this is where the doctor says, I assure you that the essence of the robot mind lies in a completely literal interpretation of the universe. It recognizes no spirit in the first law, only the letter. The simple models you have on Earth may have their first law so overlaid with additional safeguards that, to be sure, they may well be incapable of threatening a human. Because basically Baley was like, it's the spirit of the first law, like, that he broke. Yeah. So he has to be a non-robot. Yeah,
even though he didn't actually hurt anybody, pointing a gun at a human should have been something a robot would never think of.
Yeah, but basically the doctor was like,
no, like literally if it doesn't hurt people, he can do it.
Yeah.
There's no...
Yeah, like you guys might have handicaps on your robots.
Yeah, because there's probably, like you said, a sub-protocol, and also never threaten him, and also don't raise your voice, and also don't even look at me tough.
Basically.
All these little extra lines.
Well, actually, I don't know.
They're also so dumb, though.
They don't get into it here. They get into it later, but like... I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'll just jump forward a little bit. They get into it later, but on the topic of like Sammy, he's like always smiling, and I don't remember if it was later or before.
Oh no, it is before the friendship circuit.
To add everybody to that works in the handicap.
City. Yeah,
like they have a friendship circuit that makes them friendlier, where they like are constantly smiling, or they're constantly happy, or
yeah. I feel bad. I don't know if that was supposed to be a reference to like actual stereotypical slaves, like over here, like just the grinning, oh, happy master, like just always be smiling.
No,
and then even sexist kind of women, like be smiling all the time. Don't ever let a man not see you.
No, I actually think it's just because Earth hates, like there is such a hatred and inferiority complex with robots.
Well, yeah, with the spacers robots, that they've made their robots so dumb.
But just robots in general, like people don't like them, and now they're replacing people, so there's like unrest. So by having robots,
but it seemed like that was in place for a while. No, I mean I got the vibe. I mean, it's not said explicitly one way or the other.
They've been doing stuff, but technically, like, kind of like now, like where there's this whole like kind of untalked about or not talked about unrest where like, oh, robots are taking cashier jobs, or robots are you can go to McDonald's and put in your order on a computer. You don't have to talk to someone anymore. Like there is this idea of these things can start
we're
to
already
replace
seeing small job replacement, small scale.
And then we also have because we read Foundation, it's funny to think, like, we know from the Foundation books how Earth felt, where it was like the first wave of colonizers took robots, and then the second wave purposely didn't take robots. Remember?
Yeah.
So we know
huge.
like
because that's what's so weird about the Foundation series. It comes so much further after this,
but they don't have robots.
Yeah, and you're gonna learn to love robots during this series, and see that they're ubiquitous, and see the logic behind like this is just progress.
But somehow as a species we're gonna abandon them.
I'm gonna use my full restraint to not go into my esoteric Asimov super cool deep rant that I have for later with the yeast guy, but it is connected to that.
Why do you have to hold off?
Because it'll make more sense when we get the quotes from him. Don't worry, it'll make sense.
I mean, we can fast forward.
No. Go from here forward. Don't worry, it makes sense this time.
Okay.
I promise. So from here, this is where you're going to get to, and this is connected where Elijah doubts, he says he must have a sense of justice, and it says here, justice, Elijah, is that which exists when all laws are enforced. So they're trying to really strike home into this earthling or detective that the robot is not making up its own concepts. Because
so Elijah Baley, just so for anyone that missed the first one, it's the same character. Basically he's like debating with this doctor who is intimately involved with Daneel and the doctor that was killed, and like, I say intimately, that's not the word I'm looking for, but like he worked closely with them.
Yeah. That's good.
But
don't make it sexual.
I mean,
he wasn't intimate with him, but they intimately worked on the robots.
He's basically like, I mean, if they take the laws, the first law, so literally how, like, why is he a detective now? And they're like, because we installed justice into his brain. He has a drive for justice.
Yeah.
I vouch for that. Actually, I think I have it. It's here on this page. He vouches that he was there for the installation of this drive for justice.
It was done to him 3 days ago under my own supervision.
Yeah.
It says a drive for justice. Justice, Dr. Falstov, is an abstraction. Only a human being can use that term. And then, but the spacer doctor says if you define justice in such a way, it's an abstraction. If you say that it is the rendering of each man his due, that it is adhering to the right or anything of the sort, I grant your argument. Basically, it goes on to say, but justice to this robot just means enforcing the law.
Which is when Daneel gives that quote that Freddie read.
Mm-hmm.
And then the desire to see all laws enforced has been built into our Daneel now. Justice is very concrete turn to him.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing abstract about it. A human being can recognize the fact that on the basis of an abstract moral code, some laws may be bad ones and their enforcement unjust. What do you say, our Daneel? An unjust law, our Daneel said our Daneel evenly, is a contradiction in terms.
Yeah. So that's like huge, and it gets at something I forget where exactly in the Foundation series there. Maybe it was Gaia, Bliss, arguing like that if an action comes about, then isn't it the same thing? What's the difference between the human doing it and the robot doing it? And I'm like, because we don't know about the metaphysics, we don't know that there is a mind in there, that it's actually subjectively experiencing anything. I mean, we can both sit down and eat, and we can both say, wow, that was great. But there might not be anything feeling, like joy or memories. We
literally have that happen.
Well, yeah, I know the eating was, I shouldn't have used that. He literally eats later. Just to prove that he can do that. So he looks human. But I'm saying that, like he says right here, like there can't be an unjust law. He's thinking so rigidly. And Bailey's upset that you're using this abstract term like justice, but then at the same time trying to conflate it with just actions, just carrying it out. Like they're both going to carry out these, they're both going to try and enforce the law, and then somebody's going to say that the robot's upholding justice, and Bailey feels you just shouldn't be able to use that word. It's a cool thing because Gaia tries to act like that's not a problem in the future, so in the Foundation series.
So Bailey gets frustrated and he's like, all right, well, still, you were in my apartment last night and you left. Mm-hmm. He's like, where'd you go? Yeah. And Daneel's like, to the men's personal. And Bailey's like, haha, You see, he has to be a human because why would he have to go there unless he had to shit?
Yeah.
And so they're like, so why did you go there? And Daneel's basically like, I was looking for any type of eavesdropping thing that they could have installed in the personal since it's close to your apartment. And they're like, did you find anything? And he's like, nope.
Yeah.
So I came back.
He's like, that's it, bro. It wasn't some conspiracy. But again, they let him lay this out. I mean, you want to just jump into how they prove that he is a robot? Because I thought that was hilarious. Like seeing him, it was written so well, like the way he was flustered. They made him lay out all of these different points to where he can't be a robot and the logic of why it makes sense.
I would like to only point out the only thing that I highlighted here that I was really, really interested in this whole conversation, other than like the cool, like, he's whatever. I did find the section personal is quite close to Elijah's apartment, so that the distance factor is not important. A suitcase model could be used. I went to the personal to investigate, so that was the proof that's why he went. But he kind of asked Elijah, he's like, by the way, as an aside, what's up with your wife? How come she left the apartment and she was cool with me? Then she returned to the apartment knowing I was a robot. Yeah. The obvious conclusion is that the information to that effect exists outside the apartment. So he's like, I mean, this is why I was investigating and why I kept asking you if we could be overheard and shit. Yeah. And not to underestimate the enemy, because clearly somebody is onto us.
Yeah. And they already proved
I look like a person.
Yeah, really. Because this, again, he's the first ever robot that looks like a person, that is indistinguishable.
He's like, I am one of a kind. Y'all people have never seen anything like me.
But they already proved that there were no rumors, right? At this point in the conversation?
No.
Okay.
No, it's shortly after this.
Okay.
Because the commissioner is literally going to end this conversation. And he's going to go, literally, he's going to go keep investigating whether the rumors are true.
Okay.
That's what ends up happening. Because basically, so he's like, all right.
It's your word of the day. I'm sorry. Make you self-conscious about that.
You go.
I'm just jumping to he cuts his arm off Terminator 2 style to show that he's a robot under his arm. And
there's like a seam he can open.
Okay, yeah, he doesn't. I'm saying Terminator 2 does a gory version of that, but that's what it evokes in my mind.
Even his clothes, like, there's just like a seam.
It's just magnetic, because he makes the point. He's like, yeah, there's no rivet, there's no like screws that you can undo. This thing looks like a person. So I guess like he reflects, like, I guess what was I expecting? Like he does peel the skin. They lose the magnetic hold, and like a piece of his skin comes off. You don't see a seam. That would obviously give away. Yeah, so it magnetically kind of falls off. The skin falls off the bone, and it shows. It
opens it like.
Yeah, and it shows his magnetic arm. But Baley is such a well written thing. Like he's like, well, what the fuck, man?
He literally. First
he made me
goes
talk for 10
shock.
minutes. Yeah, that's true. He literally
goes into shock, and they have to give him some weird thing.
Yeah, some smelling salts equivalent, basically.
Basically, to like wake his ass up, and then he's like, "Why did you let me do this whole exposition, knowing that I was wrong?"
I do declare. He like it. That was the vibe. Like he's like laying out, like, I got you, because X, Y, Z. See, you thought you were gonna dupe me, and they just pull his arm out.
Baley could scarcely hear the remark for the buzzing in his ears and for the sudden jarring of the commissioner's high-pitched and hysterical laughter.
Yeah, his boss is hysterically laughing at him because he's passing out at the sight of a robo arm being revealed.
So
I just thought that whole scene was great.
He's in shock, and
like you said, though, to critique the Foundation, like, this is funnier. It's a subtle humor in there of like how these things are structured.
The fact that the commissioner literally laughed his ass off.
Yeah, but like so are we, because I don't know about you. I was kind of.
I didn't question that Daneel was a robot.
Really? Okay. I don't remember how I did the first time I read it, but hearing it this way, I'm like, he's making some good points. I literally know Daneel's a robot, and I'm still like, that's a good point.
Nah, I admit I was
really?
Like,
it didn't get you? I didn't know how if it would dupe you.
Because it's like the whole.
But because you know Daneel's a robot too, though, technically.
But no, it would also just undermine the plot. Like, the whole point is this
the book would be over there
tension.
if that was it.
Yeah, and it also is this constant tension between him and Daneel, because Daneel's a robot. He doesn't like robots. But is he, like, starting to come to terms with, like, robots? Is Daneel going to win him over? Is Daneel going to change?
Yeah, there would be no character growth. I guess, like I said, the book would have to end right there. If that was it,
yeah,
you know you're looking at a book.
It also, like, it would kind of just scrub the entire thing. Like,
that would be the only point of it. Like, see, that was a clever plot twist.
Yeah. I really think Daneel had to be a robot. So I was pretty positive he was a robot. I didn't realize they were going to literally have this shit blow up in his face and have people laugh at him.
Yeah, I know. That was pretty great.
Was not nice. But, I mean, it was honest.
Yeah.
So they laugh at him.
Yeah, and then, like I said, the commissioner, he's going to...
He goes into shock. When he comes back out of shock, the commissioner is hung up, and he's thinking, like, I've ruined this.
There's a great point here. You can't talk to spacers that way, Elijah. They won't take it.
Yeah, that was like in his head. Like this idea that he's going to get chewed out. He's going to get declassified. He's going to get pulled off the case. They're going to make fun of him. Like, this was such a fumble in his mind. So he's basically like, all right, well, I'm going to go pack up my desk. And Dr. Festov is like, over. Where are you going?
Yeah.
Is murder not important?
Yeah, you Earthlings don't want to solve nothing.
What are you talking about? I clearly just lost my job, and you watched me do it, asshole. And he's like, no, on the contrary. On the contrary, I have vouched for you, so you are stuck. I really need you to stick to this case. And so it was cool because...
I could read your quote here. You got it highlighted.
Yeah.
Mr. Baley, because he thinks he's obviously done. Like you said, his career's over. He must be kicked out, but the doctor wants him to stay. He says, Mr. Baley, in general, I have met two kinds of city dwellers, rioters and politicians. Your commissioner is useful to us, but he's a politician. He tells us what we want to hear. He handles us, if you know what I mean. So,
yeah,
they like,
you
this is the first time.
I can deal with, frankly. Last night, Mr. Baley R. Daneel reported to me on my shielded sub-ether. Some things about you interest me very much. Yeah.
So basically, this is the first Earthling that they've ever dealt with that had the balls to talk to them like that.
Yeah.
He's clearly going to be somebody who's trying to get to the truth. He's trying to get to the truth so much that he just embarrassed himself.
Yeah.
And the theories weren't horrible. You know what I mean?
They weren't. I mean, they were only horrible to them because they knew for sure that Daneel was a robot.
And to us, at least, meta part that we know it's a book.
I at least appreciate that they understand where he's coming from, where he's never been exposed to technology like this. And like, they knew when they were creating Daneel that they were basically trying to create a sleeper agent that would not be, like, suspected or...
Yeah. You're supposed to think you're talking to a person.
To, like, the people, yeah.
Be as yourself as possible.
The whole concept was that the spacers wanted to send out... Like, they wanted to integrate into the Earthman, like, culture.
Yeah.
So that they can get to know them better and they can try to, like, elevate Earthmen so that they're not just eating yeast.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do that because they're literally so terrified of disease. Like, because the spacers have been sent out into space and their culture has, like, as a species, they've basically grown.
Yeah, they got to
like,
curate their own
from
worlds.
These like worlds. They don't have a lot of the stuff that we have on Earth. Like on Earth, it's still 8 billion of us all living on top of each other.
Yeah.
So he literally, which I do love this. I'm like, how would you not understand planet Earth? They're like, we hate the spacers because they constantly make us do health checks and they're so like up their butt and like.
Did you not read War of the Worlds? It's funny because I'm like, look, Asimov influenced so many people after him, but it's kind of cool to see how he was influenced by War of the Worlds. Like that whole idea of like, well, it is kind of mind blowing that we could kill aliens with just our disease.
Like
the same
these
way,
guys
like
literally, he like had to
world.
explain to Baley like, I don't not come up to you to like shake your hand.
Yeah.
And I don't wear gloves and filters in my nose because it's fun or because I feel superior to you.
This ain't a fashion statement
in
my nose.
I would love to shake your hand. I could literally die.
Because he says he's the first person that he ever plainly told that to. He technically never told even the commissioner, even though the commissioner is one of the few Earthlings that goes into spacer territory.
Yeah, but he doesn't. They don't like to tell the Earthlings their weakness because it's funny. There is a superiority complex, but it also, I think, to their defense, it also kind of protects them.
Yeah, like, they know they could be coughed on and be killed. That might give the rioters a little extra juice. They come a knocking in a coffin.
They had a small community of microorganisms to deal with and no intermediate hosts. There are no mosquitoes to spread malaria, no snails to spread...
Have fun with that word. I don't know where you are, but I remember listening to...
disease. Mm-hmm. Disease agents were wiped out and symbiotic bacteria allowed to grow. Gradually, the outer worlds became disease-free. Naturally, as time went on, entrance requirements for immigrant Earthmen were made more and more rigorous, since less and less could the outer worlds endure the possible introduction of disease, because they would literally be wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
But I have never had what you would call a cold. If I were to contract one, I might die.
Yeah.
Those of us who come here run a definite risk. Earth is riddled with disease to which we have no defense, no natural defense.
Yeah. It's funny that, they call the Americas the New World. And so it's playing with that, like they're on literally other worlds.
Believe me, Mr. Baley, I act aloof only in self-defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry.
So why have you spacers come to Earth anyway? Why don't you leave us alone? Mm-hmm. Dr. Fastelov said with obvious surprise. Mm-hmm. Are you satisfied with life on Earth? We get along. Yes, but for how long will that continue? Your population grows up continuously. The available calories meet the needs only as a result of greater and greater effort. Earth is a blind alley, man.
Yeah. And of course, I guess Baley doesn't super notice it, but that's what's so cool, like I said, about the character development over the course of this. He's starting to be disillusioned with all of the, like I say, the gray communism.
For whatever reason, he had to be sat down and explained to this. Like,
that you guys live in caves of steel. You guys are hiding in caves while other humans, your descendants
even
in
how
space.
Finicky, like, their 8 billion people are literally being forced to eat different versions of yeast.
Yeah, I think that 10,000 Strange or something they mentioned later. And is it later where he mentions that they compare it to our time, our current day is medieval times to them, and they say New York City could last like a week before it ran out of reserves.
Yeah,
and then it got to like a day, and now it can't even last an hour, they say. They need constant shipments of this
have that here.
Gruel.
In medieval times, the open cities, when even the largest could subsist on food stores and on emergency supplies for all sorts for a week at least. When New York first became a city, it could have lived on itself for a day. Now it cannot do so for an hour. A disaster that would have been uncomfortable 10,000 years ago, merely serious 8,000 years ago, and acute 100 years ago would now be surely fatal.
Mm-hmm. And the word cities there in the writing, it means these cities. It means the caves of steel size cities. So there was a time where even at what he's used to, it could have lasted a whole day. So like even you didn't solve anything by going to hide in these caves of steel. You're still degenerating and losing.
Like you guys are
racing to zero. Is what it's called. Like
so Baley says, then what is there to do? You're tapping a dead power line.
Mm-hmm.
What about immigration to new worlds? There are 100 billion stars in the galaxy. It is estimated that there are 100 million planets that are inhabitable or can be made inhabitable.
Mm-hmm.
And Baley says, that's ridiculous, Why, said Dr. Fastelov with vehemence.
Vehemence and Fastolf.
I can read. Fastolf. Why is the suggestion ridiculous? Earthmen have colonized planets in the past. Over 30 of the 50 outer worlds, including my native Aurora, were directly colonized by Earthmen. Is colonization no longer possible?
Mm-hmm.
Earthmen are also coddled, so enwombed in their imprisoning caves of steel that they are caught forever. You, Mr. Baley, won't even believe that a city dweller is capable of crossing country to get to Spacetown. Because again, the theory is that
was one of my favorite
someone
quotes.
Left the town.
That I'm glad. I'm a little lost where you are here. There you go. No, I got it. Yeah. That's literally one of my favorite. I'm so glad you. Yeah, crossing space to get to a new world. Yeah, hold on. Look, the rest of that quote is also important. Crossing space to get to a new world must represent impossibility squared to you. Civism is ruining Earth, sir. Because it's what's hilarious, like you said, I will jump to the yeast guy we're going to get to in a little bit. This terrorist group, essentially, that wants to, or want to be terrorists, that hate the spacers. Ironically, they have common interests.
Yeah.
He's, the spacer and the hillbilly, anti-progress. These guys are painted as, anti-progress. They hate robots, they hate spacers. But so their plan is to not live in the caves of steel. That maybe we should be spread out.
They want to return to the soil.
Yeah, but like in what today, the reader would consider futuristic, but we're still managing our resources. It's a tech positive but earth protecting society. We're not going to just race to destroy Earth to build cool gadgets and shit.
Although Yeastman had a couple interesting things I highlighted.
No, Yeastman is giga-based, and all right, I'm going to give it away. Like, I think Yeastman proves to me that Asimov is writing at an esoteric level. Like, he puts the right points in some of the bad guys. We know the Caves of Steel plan doesn't work. So we know what the ending is to Earth. We know the real ending for Earth ultimately.
Yeah.
So that's what we don't get in real life. Like, that's what's cool about fiction. Like, so we can work back from, like, we don't know what politician for sure is going to work, or what economic model, or who knows what country is going to take over in the future. Like, we don't know what the future holds, but in this universe, we do. In Asimov's universe, we know, and Asimov wrote it, so we know Asimov is saying, anybody saying that you should have stayed on Earth or this plan, something got screwed up because it's irradiated and dead. Spoiler alert.
I was going to say,
at one point,
something I find kind of interesting is, like, he talked about in the forward of this book how he wanted to write stories sympathetic to robots.
Yeah.
So I'm like, did your sympathetic stories always have Earth dying?
Yeah. So he's either lying there or guided by the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. For real, because I'm like, we've got to get to Yeastman. Everything he says is true. He's the bad guy. He's the big dumb, like I said, antisocial, country bumpkin, anti-progress. Haha, he's such a dummy. And yet, the stuff that he's warning about...
He's actually super smart.
I know. I'm acting like he's a dumb bumpkin. I'm comparing him to the shoe lady in my head. Like, the
he's
whole
not.
Whole movement
he's actually
is seen as
zingamingling ologist.
Oh yeah. They're little special high tech food.
A yeast.
They're insanely processed food.
That's just a version of yeast. It's like yeast meat.
But it's with all these other additives and crazy shit that makes it palatable.
But he's a scientist.
Yeah. He's not a country bumpkin, but I'm saying the movement as a whole is seen as anti-progress.
Yeah.
And but anyway, let's continue with the story. We're gonna get to him, and we'll go
quickly,
super deep with him.
We find out spacers are having
analogous experience
issued to us, and Bailey's like, y'all have overpopulation like we do, and he's like, no, we have underpopulation.
Yeah, it's a population issue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our birth rate is low and population increase is rigidly controlled. We maintain a definite robot and man ratio designed to maintain the individual in the greatest comfort. Logically, developing children are carefully screened for physical and mental defects before being allowed to mature. Bailey interrupted. You mean you kill them off if they don't? Mm-hmm. If they don't measure up? Quite painlessly, I assure you. The notion shocks you just as the Earthman's uncontrolled breeding shocks us.
Yeah. And right before that, we learned that they basically lived to at least mid-300s.
Yeah.
Because he's 160 at the time.
And he's going to at least double.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, yeah, they use some sort of both gene testing, gene screening, and then even once conception, they're doing some sort of abortion, early.
Well, we find out super later, like on Solaria.
Yeah.
That's just some crazy nonsense going on over there.
And that's why each of these are going to act like little petri dish, like, states. What was that good anime that everywhere they went was like totally different run?
Oh, I'm gonna forget
Juno.
The name.
That was the name of it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Juno's World or something?
Yeah, something like that. That's what's the idea of the United States. You can have different policies applied to different states, but you still have one big federal thing. I don't know if there's an equivalent of a spacer federal government. I'm pretty sure they're just all on their own. I know that's explored more in here and some of the other books, more in the robot series. But that's why you get Solaria. Some of them are so different, and it makes for great novels because each one you go to, you get to have Asimov do his world building in applied sci-fi theoretic. You found it? No?
Dang it! I'm trying to remember.
Don't worry about it. We got plenty to cover.
Okay.
They'll find it. Somebody in the comments.
Oh no! You just
yeah. Oh. The point. She has a motorcycle. She goes to all these different territories.
She has a talking motor, scooter moped.
But it worked as a great philosophical, sci-fi, way of taking points to their logical, conclusion, taking them to their extreme. What would
Kino's journey?
Kino's journey. Okay. Yeah.
Dang it!
What would a society look like if they did this? And you get to see that sucks about this place, and you go to the next one they suck in a different way. Nothing's perfect.
Such a great, we don't recommend so many different animes, but that is such a great one philosophically.
Yeah, it's just fun too.
Yeah, it's a lighthearted, very fun one,
but also interesting. Psychopaths is a lot of these issues of the super protective nanny state, doing great with meeting everybody's needs, material needs, but at a very minimum. And freedom and creativity and drive is a issue.
All right. So there's a lot of talking. Basically, I don't know. Anything you want to really...
No, they're good here. Just that they just is kind of, not bad exposition dump, but just you're learning.
Oh, and I guess what their goal is, the people of Space Town, as opposed to just the spacers. Because there are spacers that don't want to do this, and there's spacers but they specifically want to create a new colonization that's the pinnacle of the different cultures, where it's going to be the outer world and Earth coming together with the perfect balance of sci-fi.
Yeah, of carbon and iron folk. Yeah.
And that would just be the new, that would be the establishment of the new human species out in the universe.
Yeah. One thing I don't want to miss, which is funny, it's not highlighted here, but Baley asks, who judges which children get to live? And my intuition of Asimov says the answer alludes to a whole book, probably. It says, the spacer says, that's rather complicated and not to be answered in a sentence. Someday we may talk it out in detail.
I might write a book about it.
There's got to be some robot leadership making cold, rational, logical decisions about ending human lives.
So after all of this, they end up, it's not talked about, but after this whole conversation, he supposedly gets to watch some footage of the crime scene and whatever, because it's all been cleaned up, so all they have is footage, and he gets to watch some of that. He doesn't really get to question people, he just gets to talk to Dr. Fasteloff, but that's the way the spacers do stuff. And they return to the city. The only thing that I really liked about returning to the city was that as they return, Bailey's nose tingles with the slight and fugitive pungence. He thought wonderingly, the city smells.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It made sense because the thought of 20 million human beings crammed in the steel walls of the Great Cave. Yeah. And for the first time in his life, he smelled them with the nostrils that had been washed cleaned by outdoor air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
so
I don't know.
He asks Daneel, why do you think the doctor ended up spilling his guts to me? And he says, it seems probable to me, Elijah, that he wished to impress you with the importance of the investigation. We are not here just to solve a murder, but to save Spacetown, and with it, the future of the human race. Because it really is more than...
Yeah, because these are the last pages of Chapter 9. So I really do think we got to strike home, the vision of the doctor here and all these people trying to make this robot thing is, like you said, the merging of these two cultures, but the spacers are upset. They know that their space
But
their system doesn't work. So like, Earth seems way shittier.
There's forces like the Commissioner and Spacetown that want to help Earth.
Yeah.
But then there are like the medievalists and these nationalist spacers that want nothing to do with all of it, and it can all become very murky. Where if it turns out that they can't solve the murder, or if we didn't cooperate, the spacers could take this personal. Yeah. If we like the medievalists could take this personally. Like
they both are at war. These are two groups that also warred for, I don't know, I felt like it was maybe a long time.
There's a lot of tension here.
The Earth colonists were, like you said, imperializing. Like they were not very nice, kumbaya at some point. And it made it sound like that was within the solar system itself. And then, we got stuff. They got faster than light travel at this point. And that's why you got so many colony planets that are in different, solar systems. But the hope from Fastov here is it really does rely on this peaceful existence of a third thing, not the civis, as he calls it, civism version, which is this weird
they're trying to make like
cave dwellers, nor what he thinks is chaotic.
They want a balance of like, because the spacers
he doesn't explicitly say, but you think he thinks the spacers are going to just fight each other too and just destroy each other?
So he talks about how the spacers have become like way too stable, and how everything's like way too controlled. So I think in his mind, the spacers are just going to die out.
It's as gross.
And that's kind of what ends up happening.
On Solaria, where you saw like the worst.
Well, Solaria's like the only one. All the other planets are like abandoned.
Well, yeah, they are literally something
and dead,
happened.
And it makes sense because... So they have super small populations, and these populations on top of that are like not micromanaged. Man,
I mean, yeah, they are. Oh, sorry. Just that Solaria is. It seems like the exact opposite. Like the difference between Solaria and Earth parallels what he says. What is the word he used? It's analogous. It's not. It's analogous, not identical. Ours is underpopulation. And Earth's is overpopulation. But it's also philosophical core of too much independence on Solaria and a love of robots. They literally rely on robots.
But I got my thought back. Okay, go. So Solaria, like we find out in Foundation, whatever, 4 or 5. I don't remember which one. Yeah. It was, I don't remember where it was. But in Foundation 4 or 5, we find out that they literally made themselves like hermaphroditic, and they could like make their own eggs. Like they can just basically continue cloning themselves.
Yeah.
And they can play with the genes so that they don't get any nonsense happening where like genetic stuff.
But it's the Ouroboros. It's the snake eating itself. It's stuck.
But they're the only ones that did that. Everyone else that stayed separate, or what they called like the half humans, because they were the complete humans.
They're just extinct now.
They're just extinct, and it makes sense because they probably couldn't continue. Like, if you're in a downward trajectory and you're having issues with population, like where you're controlling the population, but you almost don't have to because you're not meeting quotas anyway.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're just going to continue down that route.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened to all the robots.
And the fact that they're like so susceptible to disease and like.
I know that would be the sad, funny version.
Really, all you need is one guy to land there and be like, "Hi."
Yeah, start touching everything.
I'm gonna touch everything. Let me lick this spoon.
Lick your doorknobs. Yeah, but I just thought that was a cool version of. This book does a great job of showing what's gross about this inward, this lack of progress, and we're supposed to, as humans, I think, spread out and keep innovating and reaching out, and like the phrase goes, inherit the stars. And so the Caves of Steel, they're exact opposite, but also don't romanticize spacer life. Like, it's kind of cool that we're getting to see that while Bailey's being disillusioned.
Yeah, you're definitely supposed to keep something. So like, it's cool because you see these references throughout this book to the Bible, and whether you're religious or not, it's a very human. Yeah, for sure. The Bible's not referenced. It's referenced like once. I think they mentioned that it's an important book, but in the Foundation, it's not really touched. By the time we get to Foundation, they don't remember what it is, which makes sense because if we go an almost spacer-like route, we would kind of forget. And even in this book, like, the interpretation of the Bible's a little funky.
Yeah.
But The point is,
it's not bad. Yeah, but go ahead.
The point is that there, whatever that religion, that like that tumbling, that constant human need to like be fighting the unknown.
Yeah.
Baley does a really good. We're your yeast guy that does a good.
Oh, I know. We'll get to that.
That's much better, much more eloquent than what I'm trying to say. There's a human component that's lost in the spacers,
and that's why it's so confusing. And I think people have too much of a simplistic understanding of Asimov. Like, he was atheist, he critiqued a lot of stuff, but there's parts in here where, I mean, why would he write it like that? He thinks there's some reason why it came about. It's kind of my own beliefs. I think he knows
it's important.
Like, oh, so it's all dumb and pointless, right? Haha. And it's like, no, I wouldn't say that either. I think, why would Asimov include all this? Why would he spend time studying all this? Like, he thinks it emerges from, it might be imperfect, it might be a strange ancient way that we express this religious impulse in us, this kind of question and meaning. It's on the whole thing of justice. Just to jump ahead to it, he's explaining the that he without sin cast the first stone, and the robot's stuck like, but she broke the law, so she should be punished. And that's just trying to show, like, I don't know how to explain this to you, Robo Man. There's something beyond. He's literally metaphysics or morality. Like, I get it. We need laws and we're strict, and we've all, you could have typical conservative types like, oh, the laws are important, but also preserving this tradition of, I don't know, man, sometimes you just know that shit feels wrong. And like you said, that's lost in the spacers. The spacers are all described as being super. Yeah,
so the reason Daneel doesn't know anything when it comes to the Bible, even the stories, because like he has Baley tells him, like, do you want me to quote the Bible? Yeah, because
not like Bailey's going to church. He doesn't have like a whole icon wall in his house.
No, but he was like a historical, he actually used to read
like
the Bible
Asimov himself. Who other atheists and go, it's so dumb, and you go, but no.
But the reason Daneel doesn't know the Bible is because spacers don't know the Bible, so they couldn't put that information into Daneel. So when he comes to Earth, like, literally at some point Bailey's like, the Bible, like what half the human race still reads.
Yeah, that was interesting. And half the people, even in these caves of steel.
Yeah. And Daniel's like, I do not compute. Yeah. I would critique in part because of something like, it's like everything. It's just not that simple. There's a lot of religious people listen to it. I think they would love the Caves of Steel. It would be perfectly, when you think of some of these monasteries and some of these traditions where it's against progress, it's against ambition, literally. It's against, these are sins. So that isn't crazy. But Baley still likes it enough and studies it and is objective enough to say there's something there. Clearly the robot, the plain cold logic of some of these spacers and the robot scares him. That's why he brings up that story with Jesus and thinking outside of the strict law. So they're on their way into the city, and basically Daneel's like, by the way, we do have a suspect. And he's like, I've been sitting here trying to make you a suspect. Baley. Can you tell me who your suspect is? And he goes, the one Earthman who was on the scene, Commissioner Julius Enderby. Yeah. Wait, where is that? Because you don't want to miss the Wandering Londoner. No, that's not yet. Okay. Okay. I'm pretty sure. Because in chapter 8, so we're on chapter 10 now, by the way. For the people listening there, following along. I don't think I missed it. Yeah, chapter 10's pretty quick. It's while they're still traveling through. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's up here, the Wandering Londoner on page 122. Okay, so we didn't pass it, right? I don't know. I don't know where you went. No, it's because the next part is, basically the story, like this opens up with the story because they're driving through all these like passages. So like we thought the Caves of Steel went downward, but it seems like there are, well, it's wide too. Yeah, but basically the old abandoned subways and stuff, and all these tunnels and things under the city, they've been abandoned and they're really just used by police, and ambulance, firefighters. It's really not like a place for pedestrians to be hanging out.
Yeah. And it becomes a maze.
Like, it basically, you know what I thought of? The underground of Disney, where like only the cast
that's creepy.
can like use it, unless and you're really only down there if you're like being escorted somewhere in an emergency. Like, but there's all these tunnels that connect underground in Disney to get you from one point to another without kids seeing you or whatever. It's very cool, and it's Disney lore.
Yeah. But this is, picture them, they're building this over, because we're 3,000 years in the future. So all these random tunnels, you ever see like pushed on your Instagram? Like all these people that do the exploring, urban, I forget what they're called. But they just find random whole, tunnels and subway systems and dead ends and all that.
Except I get to push a lot of Florida stuff, so it'll be like an abandoned like hospital or something.
Yeah, we don't really have a lot of underground stuff here. Nope. But like Chicago, New York, London, you just see these endless things. Like, where the hell are these guys? It's a whole city underground. And so imagine that times 1,000.
Yep.
And so you get this cool folklore of the wandering Londoner, which was creepy.
So the story goes like this. It concerned the motorways of London and began quietly enough with a murder. The murderer fled toward a prearranged hideout in the corner of a motorway in whose dust his own shoe prints had been the only disturbance for a century. Sorry.
Yeah.
Basically, he goes down into these corridors, and he had like a prearranged route, but then he like got lost.
Yeah.
And he took a wrong turn, and then he kept taking wrong turns. He took a wrong turning, and in the silence and loneliness of those twisting corridors, he swore at a mad and blaspheming oath that, in spite of the Trinity and all the saints, he would yet reach his haven. From that time on, no turning was right. He wandered through an unending maze from the Brighton sector on the Channel to the Norwich, and from Coventry to Canterbury. He burrowed endlessly beneath the great city of London, from end to end of its sprawl, across the southeastern corner of the medieval England. Yeah. His clothes were rags, his shoes ribbons. His strength wore down, but never left him. He was tired, but unable to stop. He could only go on, with only wrong turnings ahead of him. Sometimes he heard the sound of passing cars, but they were always in the next corridor, and however fast he rushed, for he would gladly have given himself up by then, the corridors he reached were always empty. Sometimes he saw an exit far ahead that would lead to the city's life and breath, but it always glimmered further away as he approached, until he would turn and it would be gone.
Yeah, I just love that mirage. Like, just picture light reflecting in these complex tunnels down. You just see the light, and you're like, oh my god, that's gotta be it. And the sound, I just love that. Like, you're literally in one hallway, and you just don't. You hear the car right next door.
Yeah.
And then you go, I don't know, down a whole nother tube and get turned around again.
He's like running, and I was like, oh, there, it's coming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Occasionally, Londoners on official business through the underground would see a misty figure limping silently toward them, a semi-transparent arm lifted and pleading, a mouth open and moving, but soundless. As it approached, it would waver and vanish.
You got a ghost story inside of an Asimov story.
It was a story that had lost the attributes of ordinary fiction and had entered the realm of folklore. The wandering Londoner had become a familiar phrase to all in the world.
I don't know. I just think that's great. And we were saying that's an example of, we were pretty rough on the book 5 of Foundation. And I'm like, there's nothing like that.
Literally world lore.
Yeah, because I was saying to her earlier that that's how you know you did good world building, and you're explaining your novel well, because you're able to fit, real people develop folklore. So what would the folklore they look like in this fictional world look like? There's layers.
So this folklore though also is so important, because you find out later in this book that stuff's happening. Like, I don't know how to explain. But, like, there are so many little things throughout this book that are connected to other things in the book. Like, he definitely writes them there purposely. Like, this story of the Wandering Londoner is written to give you an idea of how many corridors there are underground and how easy it is to get lost.
Yeah.
And how it really isn't unfathomable to think that you wouldn't go through all of them. Some of them are probably never used by police. Like, eventually they're just using main ones, and like there's so many offshoots that have probably not been touched for God knows how many years. So that, and I think this little story paints such a good picture of like, how would you know?
How would you know what? Where?
Like how would you know how many like, and how many of these things go untouched? Like, how many times do you drive by a tunnel and something could be happening in there and you have absolutely no idea?
And that's
because why would you go down there?
And that something could be, you know, the anti-spacer terrorist organizations too.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what element that is?
So after all of this, like, basically Bailey's like remembering this story, and Daneel's like, we may be overheard. And he's like, down here? Not a chance.
Yeah.
Now what about the commissioner? He's like, what?
Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, back to that.
About this on land.
Which is, how the hell could the commissioner be a suspect?
So he goes, no, his innocence was quickly established. For one thing, there was no blaster in his possession. There could not very well be one. He had entered Spacetown in the usual fashion. That was quite certain. And as you know, blasters are removed as a matter of course.
And that's where he learns that there was never a blaster found of any kind.
Well, he learned that before with Festilov.
Because it says, right, was the murder weapon found at all, by the way? No.
Oh, Elijah. No, sorry. You're right.
Every blaster's checked. Oh, yeah, and that's a cool little lore detail, too. Like, that if in case your brain was thinking ahead, like, they can tell when any of these weapons were fired, the way they work.
Yeah, every blaster in Spacetown was checked, and none had been fired for weeks. A check of the radiation chambers was quite conclusive. So, as a precaution, of course, the commissioner was cerebroanalyzed.
Yeah. Which, you know, it implies, you know, how that he sat down. You think of like an EEG or something.
That's definitely what Bailey was thinking. So, he was like, so what did that tell? What does cerebroanalyzation tell you? And Daneel says it gives us information concerning the temperamental, and emotional makeup of an individual. In the case of the commissioner, Enderby, it told us that he was incapable of killing Dr. Sarton, quite incapable.
Yeah.
And Bailey's like, nah, I agree, he's not the type.
Yeah.
And he goes, poor Julius, a suspect. I don't know that I'm ready to rule him out totally, but yeah. I
his
literally,
super thick glasses.
I highlighted when they were like, they're our first suspect. I was like, damn it.
Yeah, that the spacers had him as the first suspect.
Yeah, I was like, man.
And, you know, I say it's like an EEG because that's the only thing we can compare it to, but it can read like your actual intentions, almost your you know, your emotional scan or something. So, you know, and even the guy that knows him since college doesn't think he's a suspect.
So I was like, I don't know. I don't want to like rule him out totally because his behavior is still kind of erratic, but him being pegged as a like suspect and then thought innocent, and like I'm really leaning towards him not being.
Yeah.
He probably is just way over his head.
Yeah. And then when he does get to the commissioner, he asks for a 2-man apartment because he doesn't want to take the robot home.
Well, he's scared because his wife has been freaking out that they're not safe. So he's like, you know what? We'll just not go home.
And this is where we learn, he says, because she's all freaked out about that rumor that like they figured out
that's why they're not safe, because there's a rumor going around that the police have teamed up with a robot.
They're not going to bring this robot home.
Yeah.
But he says nonsense lies. I've had the thing checked. There's no such rumor in the city. And he says, Jesse got the story somewhere, Commissioner. And
I literally highlighted this because I was like, I was suspicious of this woman
from
the start. When she walked through the door and was like, he's the robot. I was like, how did you know?
Yeah. It was when she came back, too. Like you said, like, there's definitely some source here. I thought that was one of the more interesting plot twists of the book. Like, that just seemed obvious that the rumor spread from the little riot incident.
I was like, no, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I was already suspicious of her. I think I mentioned in the last talk I was suspicious of her. Because I was like, you don't just go and like, all right, I get that like your girlfriends would be like, oh my god, did you hear that like more people are losing their jobs to robots? But for it to be like, oh my god, did you hear that this super secret robot that's supposed to be infiltrating the human race is supposedly working with the police? And by the way, does it happen to be your husband?
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, that was...
As someone who has heard bathroom gossip, it is not the way.
Yeah.
I understand that some women would probably be like, Elise, you just don't know the right women. But no. And especially with how rumors work. Yeah. Like, you need
He's literally the only humanoid robot. I think in science fiction, we're okay with this concept of robots that seem so human. But distress, he's literally the very first one.
And, like, all these women have so many other things to talk about. And, like, the death of the spacer hasn't even been publicly announced to anyone. Yeah. Like, you would have to know someone in the spacer community, which is already not the type of community to talk to other people. And the commissioner doesn't have other cops working on this, so no other cop knows about this. Literally just Baley, the commissioner, are like the only humans that know this has happened.
Because in Bailey's defense of her story that the rumor could have got out, he's like, what if there was like a super robot specialist that was at the shoe store and, you know, he could have noticed it. But you know, how do you link that all the way back? I don't know.
But like, how would the robot specialist spread that rumor so quickly?
And Bailey's saying that after he just spent a whole, you know, super slam dunk court case proving that no, this thing isn't actually a robot. It is just a human. It looks like a human. It talks like a human because it is just a human. But then later, when his wife is called out, he's like, well, maybe, you know, some expert could tell.
Look, he literally keeps asking her, like, how did you guess it? And she doesn't want to, like,
so sketchy about anything.
She's sketchy, and she's just like, I'm so scared.
Yeah. So we'll get into the answer there, but for now, they're at the police headquarters. Yeah. He says, you know, Daneel's going through the records. He's trying to find we learned that there are millions of medievalist agitators. There's millions of them. So
I highlighted this quote because I thought it was a sign that Baley and Daneel are starting to, like, get on friendlier terms, because basically the commissioner's like, where is he now? And he's like, he's looking through the records, and he's like, good lord, there are millions.
Yeah, Baley feels bad.
I know, but it keeps him happy.
The like, little robo is having fun.
I don't know, just let him. He's just kids will let him live his life.
Yeah, we do get the interesting detail that of course their spacer computers are more advanced, but we have so much more just data, just crimes and people committing them, and it's so much. He was kind of interested in this different yet still weirdly efficient system that we have for tracking crime. So
Baley, before he leaves the commissioner's office, he's like, by the way, do you know anything about cerebral analysis? And he's like, no, am I supposed to? Yeah. He's like, nah, just something I heard in passing. And he's like, certainly the commissioner wasn't that good of an actor. Yeah. So he's thinking this is like a loophole. Like, you would have had to be strapped up to something for them to, like.
He's basically saying the commissioner has to be lying to his face.
Something.
Because.
And mind you, that he's the only suspect they have right now. So he's like, why is he lying?
Yeah. That was huge. It was huge, but we did read it far enough to get an answer. We'll get to that.
So I wondered why they had all these timestamps, by the way. Mm-hmm. At 16:55, the commissioner left, passing him with an uncertain smile. Then later, like, you'll see, it's like, oh, at this time, something, at 6:20, he made a call to Washington. Yeah. At 16:20, at 16:05, Baley called Jessie and told her he wouldn't make it home. 16:55, the commissioner left. So I was, like, I highlighted just one of these, but I was like, why are we itemizing... Yeah. Like 1640, he, you know,
there's
these
no
are
other
all
part in the book
times
like
that
that
things are happening. Mm-hmm. Why are we highlighting these things?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So why? You're not sure? You think it's in a...
I think there are time references for something that happens later.
Yeah. Okay. We're just not there yet.
No. Yeah. So basically... they're gonna go. I lost my place now.
No, they're just going through what I was saying about how Daneel is impressed with their
that's funny.
System.
I forget Daneel asked him about the glasses because he's like trying to explain to Daneel what medievalists kind of are.
Yeah. Yeah, they like all these ancient, kind of obsolete but simpler technology.
And then I highlighted this because this was cool. So Daneel's been down, like in some whatever room. They look through records. And he comes back and he's like, it was a machine that did it for me. Apparently one sets it for a particular type of offense and it does the rest.
Yeah.
It is amazing what can be done in 3 hours. The machine even eliminated the names of non-survivors from the list. You're amazed? Surely you've got computers on the outer worlds. Of many sorts, certainly. Very advanced ones. Still, none are as massive and complex as the ones here. You must remember, of course, that even the largest outer world scarcely has the population of one of your cities, and extreme complexity is not necessary.
Yeah.
So, that was just a cool... I really like that little note where, like, we're constantly feeling like these spacers are, like, superior to us, and then Daneel, the robot that looks like a human and is impersonating a human, is like, your computer's so smart.
Yeah, and he's still impressed with how, like, the spacers are so good at so many things, but they also don't have the stressors that we do with the population size and the logistics. Like, you're just being stuck.
Some of the things we're able to figure out.
You see with newer cities, I mean, especially down here in Florida, even newer houses, right? It's just better because it's built later. So doing police work in this, imagine the layers of archaeology, like you said, mentioned with the Londoner and all the tubes, the maze of crap down there from all these different projects over the thousands of years. And it's like, yeah, this is complex. This is the big leagues. You guys are out there solving, what do you got, one murder on a whole planet? Because everything else is so well regulated.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was cool little detail. And like it is just the layers of hints in this book that are good at, like, that seems like just a odd
it seems like
world
a
building
thing,
lore.
But
yeah,
it's so cool because it also shows how spacers would be like, how are we supposed to figure out who murdered this guy when your city is full of like 1 million billion people, and we could have just sent our cerebral analysis tool out to just scan everyone's brain and we would have figured it out in like 3 days.
Yeah, in their land. Yeah, but not in ours.
In their entire planet.
Yeah.
And on our land.
Yeah.
Like on our planet, they're like, we can't figure it out in the city it happened in.
Yeah, there's just too much going on.
So Bailey's like, look, I'm human and I'm getting hungry because food is a theme in this entire book.
It is kind of funny how big a theme.
Like, Freddie picks on my mom because...
Oh, I know. She's obsessed.
My
you
dad
gotta
picks
eat.
on my mom because her mind revolves around breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I'm cool with skipping a meal.
And now that we have a baby,
something.
I totally understand. Like, my entire brain sometimes is like, all right, we had breakfast, now we're gonna have lunch, and then we're gonna have dinner. Like, so I kind of get it. But Bailey's like constantly dealing
Asimov
with
must
food.
be doing that because it must feel so weird. Again, it's this weird subtle humor. Like, again, it's not laugh out loud, but it's funny to think about the robot story and food. Like, robots don't need food. Like, what's the most silly thing? We keep getting these bathroom scenes and eating scenes, which are like the most non-robot things.
So if we remember from our previous talk, we eat in the kitchens, which are these big communal dining halls. We no longer have, like, it's not only do a lot of people not have a place to eat at home. If you do, you're limited to how many times you should eat, and it's kind of frowned upon for you.
You're being a weirdo.
Yeah, like, it's really social hour for you to go eat and have your friends there. And I have a cool quote for that. But it was funny because this is where Bailey's like, Daneel, can you, like, eat? And he's like, I'm a robot, I don't have to. And he's like, no, like, if we were to go somewhere, can you pretend to eat? Because if I go somewhere with you and you don't pretend to eat, it's gonna look really weird.
Yeah, this guy's just staring at me.
And
he's spacer like, looking.
No, I could do that. I mean, he's like, you were made to, like, assimilate with us. Can you, like, pretend to eat? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, perfect. We're gonna go get lunch.
Yeah.
Or dinner, like, whatever this is.
I hope you got a stomach equivalent.
Yeah. So it's cool. He does mention, he's like, I mean, I will not. It basically goes into my stomach and then I have to get rid of it later.
Yeah.
And he's like, you could do that in our room. Let's go.
There was a weird, like, not a panic, but he's like, we're going to make sure we make time to do this, though. If you don't understand, I can't let food, like, start to rot and, like...
He's like, I will become
have chemical reactions. But that it could maybe even damage him. Like, it's just sitting there. Over time, he would have...
I thought that he just would smell bad. He just doesn't... He likes to be clean.
Maybe both, but I got the, like... It could literally get all gross.
I'm pretty sure I, like, highlighted
all right, you're good.
So it was cool because we have here where section kitchens are all the same all over the city. Mm-hmm. What's more, Baley had been to Washington, Toronto, Los Angeles, London, and Budapest in the way of business, and they had been the same there too.
Yep.
It's like perhaps it was different in medieval times, but
yeah. Which, we call that monoculture nowadays.
Which, speaking of monoculture, I also highlighted this. English might not be the English of Shakespeare or Churchill, but it was the final potpourri that was the current all over the continents and, with some modification, the outer worlds as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is probably the beginning of galactic standard.
Yeah, for sure. We made it, boys. We've redeemed the Tower of Babel.
So the kitchen is this giant bustle of noise, and they talk about how, like, there's like a 10-minute wait, and that's like the longest wait time for that, time of the day, because it's like busy. And I was like, man, if only things like, oh no, we have to wait 10 minutes. Like,
yeah, I know. Like you said, there's some ways that it's good, and some ways that it's horrifying. Yeah, their existence.
So they're like they're shuffling in line, and basically Baley's like, hey, Daneel, can you smile?
This was a funny scene.
I highlighted this because I thought this was very funny and cute between them. He goes, I was just wondering, Daneel, can you smile? He spoke in a casual whisper. Our Daneel smiled. The gesture was sudden and surprising. His lips curled back and the skin about either end folded. Only the mouth smiled, however. The rest of the robot's face was untouched. Baley shook his head. Don't bother, our Daneel. It doesn't do a thing for you.
Yeah, just picture the creepiest little mouth. No cheeks, like, no eyes, no nothing.
Or it's like that TikTok where they were like, smile, now, like, don't smile with your eyes. Yeah. And that's like your model look or whatever.
Oh, yeah. So he's just out there mugging, as the kids say. Just super, yeah.
It's like, great. So, like, the kitchens have been all super calculated, and, like, everyone, when you live in your kitchen, it's supposed to, like, or like when you go to the kitchen that's from the section that you live in, everything's just kind of like super smooth. So when these people come from other sections to stay temporarily, they like throw the kitchen off. So they had to like go.
Your rations and what you would have eaten today is not eaten at the other kitchen. Now you're like drawing too much from this kitchen. The entire
city's kitchen off.
So there's always a recalculation. There's a cool nod at, like, even in this super commie civism, like, some people, anybody, I used to work a bunch of food jobs. The greatest perk is you get a ton of free food. Yeah. So he even hints, like, even in this, where everything's super computerized and tracked, there is some wiggle room because of this, but obviously not too much. They have a whole computerized...
It's a whole thing. But there's always some grumbling when...
Their little ration chip card is all pretty easy to track.
Yeah, she gave them... Because they go up to, like, a clerk to basically check themselves in and let her know that they're going to be eating in this kitchen for a while. So she gave them little metal tags that were in bright red that meant temporary. She said, no free choices. We're short this week. Take table DF.
I think you said you just triggered memories in the... We'll get to it. Food is such a theme here, but it's a way to show scarcity. Everything from his pipe, not just food, but, like, everything's
controlled.
Yeah, I think there wasn't a day in school where we make fun of and look at how bleak and assembly line, like, the school lunchroom is, and what that crap they were feeding us at school. It's like, we still had a choice. There was still at least, like, 2 options. There's never a no choice period.
I have to admit, your school sucked. We had, like, arroz con pollo and like rice and beans and like pizza and like...
We had not that. We had we had yeast,
and
Vegemite.
if you were in good with the cafeteria ladies, they could get you cafecito.
Yeah, just ask John. I did pretty good. We had a whole pizza thing. It was expensive, but I figured it out.
Our pizza was $1.
Brokies. That's because it's from Hialeah.
It was really good.
I bet. That wasn't Pizza Hut. Anyways, we talk like this.
We had Cuban pizzas.
Our descendants are over here eating veggie slush, protein slush, mineral slush, yeast powder.
So, our Daneel says, I'm under the impression that most of your people eat in kitchens such as these regularly. Yes, of course, it's rather gruesome eating in a strange kitchen. There's no one about whom you know. In your own kitchen, it's quite different. You have your own seat, which you occupy all the time. You're with your family, your friends, especially when you're young. Mealtimes are the bright spot of the day. Baley smiled in brief reminiscence.
Yeah, that's why the infantilizing of these people, they literally are living in school.
Yeah.
That's literally how you would talk in middle school or something.
Like lunchtime's up. My
I
my
get to
favorite
hang
time
out
of
with
the
everybody.
day.
Mm-hmm.
I get to see my girlfriend and my kid.
Yeah.
There is no one so uncomfortable, thought Baley, as the man eating out of section. Mm-hmm. Be it ever so humble, the old saying went, there's no place like home kitchen.
Mm-hmm. I love it because they can't have homes.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
So basically, they sit down and they're surrounded by everyone that's also there temporarily. Because it'll happen. You might have to go visit family. You might have to go work, do business somewhere. So all the kitchens have a section for the temporary people. And you sit there and nobody knows each other and they don't want to talk to each other because they're not where they used to be. Basically
And talking while people are eating is bad manners, is what he tells Daneel.
Well, not just that. That's not what it's also that Daneel says you may help yourself to my serving if you wish. For a moment Baley was scandalized, then he remembered and mumbled, that's bad manners. Go on, eat. Because food is so scarce.
Yeah.
For you to offer your food up.
Yeah, you're being overly selfless,
or
why do you see
you're
that?
just being that food was allocated for you. So you're being ungrateful in not eating it.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it's at least that. The food itself, by the way, you get a detail here. It's mashed potatoes, zimoville sauce, stewed apricots, a fork and two slices of whole yeast bread.
I hate the word zimoville with
it's so gross. Yeah.
I cannot imagine eating this crap.
It's just a nutrient blend. Anyways, they eat. They're eating. It's all going all right ish, as well as it can. Eating with the humanoid robot.
Well, he realizes our Daneel's not bothering him as much, and he's am I getting used to him?
Yeah.
Suppose people start afresh on a new world. How that ran through his mind ever since Dr. Fastov had put it there. Suppose Bentley, for instance, were to leave Earth. Could he get so he didn't mind working and living alongside robots? Why not? The spacers themselves did it. Our Daneel said, Elijah, is it bad manners to watch another man while he is eating? If you mean stare directly at him, of course, that's only common sense, isn't it? A man has a right to his privacy. Ordinary conversation's entirely in order, but you don't peer at a man while he's swallowing. I see. Why is it then that I count 8 people watching us closely? Very closely.
Yeah.
So Baley tries to subtly look around, when you're doing that thing in the restaurant where you're trying not to look obvious that you're getting the temperature of the room. Oh no, she's moving.
Oh no.
Let's see.
And then when he was mentioning his son is Bentley. So right before this, he's mentioning that. What would it be like for his son living on a spacer world, growing up with robots?
This is the best part.
He probably would get used to it.
I'll be back.
All right, quick pause. We're back. Baby's all right. We are in the kitchen, and they are eyeballing our detective and our robot.
Yeah, and Bailey's basically like, Daneel, you're sure that they're watching us? Because I just did a super stealthy look, grabbing the salt, and I didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I am quite certain.
He's like, I'm a robot. He's like,
I mean, what does it prove? And he goes, I cannot say, Elijah, but is it coincidence that 6 of the watchers were in the crowd outside the shoe store last night?
Mm-hmm.
Bum, bum,
I know, when you read that, I was like, uh-oh. It does a great line.
I literally was like, ay.
And so that brings us to chapter 11. And so, and so that's what we're saying. So that now they're saying, suppose the incident last night had been organized by a group of anti-robot fanatics, that had not been spontaneous trouble as it seemed. One of them might have recognized our Daneel for what he was.
The commissioner had suggested that in a way. Damn it. Mm-hmm. There were surprising depths to that man.
Mm-hmm. And to his boss.
But a planned riot would be different. Here in the kitchen, the planners would themselves be trapped in a large and mob-filled room. Once the dishes went flying and the tables cracking, there would be no easy way to escape. Hundreds would certainly die, and they themselves might easily be among them. Mm-hmm. So basically, Baley's calculating. He's like, here's the thing.
Yeah, riot here's going to be a prison riot.
Yeah, so I don't...
Forks are out.
So he's like 99% sure that they're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. So basically, Baley's like, all right, we're just going to get up and we're going to leave. So as they're leaving, bless you, our Daneel says they're getting up too. And Baley says, all right, it's my feeling they won't get too close, not here.
Yeah.
So it was basically, he's like, they're getting ready to go. And he looks at the kitchen and he gets this idea of the city zoo. I mean, this is just kind of exposition, but like I highlighted it because he mentions that like the first time he ever took his kid to the zoo, he was all excited because he had never seen a cat or a dog before.
Yeah.
And that on top of that, they had birds in a cage.
Mm-hmm. Mind-blowing. Exotic beasts.
To give you an idea of what life is like in the city. Mm-hmm. It was feeding time in the sparrow cage, and an attendant was dumping cracked oats in a long trough. Human beings had grown used to yeast substitutes, but animals, more conservative in their way, insisted on real grain. The sparrows flocked down in what seemed like hundreds, wing to wing, with ear-splitting twitter. They lined the trough. That was it. That was the picture that came to Baley's mind as he looked back at the kitchen he was leaving. Sparrows at the trough. The thought repelled him. Mm-hmm. He thought, Jehoshaphat, there has to be a better way. But what better way? What was wrong with this way? It never bothered him before. Mm-hmm. Is it bad that this made me think immediately of like the Second Foundationers and Gaia and...
Yeah, when they have these thoughts that they don't even know why, or these
things are just being implanted into your mind. Yeah.
But this is from being exposed. There's no conspiracy. It is just...
No, this is way before any of those people.
The cracks of being exposed to a better culture in many ways. A more free and progressive and, soul-enriching culture. So,
one of the things, as they're leaving, one of the things that I was trying to explain that I think this does a better... you needed this explanation in the first talk that we did. Because instead of like sidewalks or like there's these strips that you step on that go at like crazy speeds or slower speeds. There's like 15 mile per hour ones and like this mile per hour ones, and you like
how
step
funny
on.
That looks. They're just standing straight up, just flying.
Yeah, and they're just like giant people movers.
Yeah. And underground, there's no bugs in your eyes or nothing, Yeah. So it works.
I mean, it's in the city, and it's all connecting. Mm-hmm. It's like miles and miles of these strips, and they all go in different directions. And like, there's this one mention earlier where like this lady dropped something and it fell onto like the opposite moving strip, and she's like never gonna see it again.
Yeah. They mentioned the lost and found as one of the funniest
it's like
things that you need in these cities.
And they're always inundated in stuff that falls. Because like every 2 minutes someone is losing something.
Yeah. It's the weirdest, like there's no parallel to that in our society.
Yeah.
Like that's such a funny thing for Asimov to think up. Like, yeah, that's going to be a whole branch of the government. So
there's a game that the youngsters... called Running the Strips. Its rules vary in trivial fashion from city to city, but its essentials are eternal. A boy from San Francisco can join the game in Cairo with no trouble. Its object is to get from point A to point B via the city's rapid transit system in such a way that the leader manages to lose as many of his followers as possible.
Yeah. It's like a version of tag, kind of in the sense that chase him.
The attraction of the game is not easy for an adult to understand, particularly for an adult who has never himself been a teenage strip runner. No year passes without its 4 or 5 teenagers killed at the game, its dozens hurt, its cases of innocent bystanders meeting tragedy of varying degree. Because, like, there's literally...
Not funny games.
Like, there'll be, like, a man pile up. Like, there's, like... And, like, people have broken bones and stuff because you're going, like, 15 miles an hour. Yeah. And some kid tripping.
Slamming into an old lady.
Yeah. Like, it'll just ruin the entire
like the
transit.
Flash. Yeah.
So, Elijah, or Elijah.
By the way, it's the only form of, like, fun / like, antisocial, rebellious behavior
they would
we've
make
heard
little
of.
gangs.
Yeah. But they're just, like... They're not on rollerblades, but that is, like, the vibe in my head. Like, wee! I'm running really fast,
just
guys.
Being little rampant.
Yeah, and then I jump over here, and like, oh my gosh. And somebody's spilling their coffee and their papers. And
so, Elijah, literally, like, Baley, he used to run with one of these little gangs as a teenager. Because if we remember, he was, like, an orphan.
Yeah.
So, it makes sense that he ended up running with these kids.
With these degenerates. These criminals.
No, but he just had a lot of time. Like, he didn't have a dad to be like,
I'm just laughing. Even their worst, like, gangs.
Yeah, like, this is what they're doing. Y'all, you kids need to stop mucking
like, watch
around.
my trick. Yeah. I'm going to run faster than normal.
But, he had, like, actually, like, won a game once, and they talked about it for months. So, he basically is like, all right, Daneel.
He's like, you're a robot. Let's see if you got this programming.
So, like, they start to play, and, like, basically this is how they're trying to lose these 6 guys that are following them.
Yeah.
So he's like, how many are with us, Daneel? Only one, Elijah. The robot was at his side, unruffled, unbreathing. He must have been good. He must have been a good one in his day too, but he won't last either. So that's kind of like...
Yeah, this guy's able to keep up with them, at least one of them.
Yeah, they get down to just one. Yeah. So he does a move called the side shuffle. He, like, gets around all these people. He almost fucks up. He, like, jumps and, like, he's gonna miss his step, but Daneel catches him. It's like, honestly, I have to admit, I was like, this is not a car chase, but it is the equivalent, and it is...
I am very happy. I'm very vindicated. I told you this last time, or I told you randomly in the day, or maybe I just didn't mention it. I don't want to spoil it, but for some reason this stuck in my head of all the random things. Remember last time we were joking that when the ending hit me,
and you're like, oh my god, oh my god.
And it's weirdly, like, it sounds kind of goofy, 50s science fiction. Sounds like exactly what it is. Like, there's gonna be strips on the ground, and we just walk really fast, and isn't that
he's like
so
40
exciting?
And like,
yeah, but I don't know why this scene. I don't know if we did a good job explaining it, but when you read it, it sticks in your head.
But like every time they look, he's like, Daneel, is you with us? And he's like, yes. And he's like, fuck. Yeah. Like, it's not like they hop on these strips and they disappear and like they lose them. No, like they do all this intricate stuff and they get down to like 2 or 3, then they do it again, and
then
it's down to this one guy. Then you can double back.
You take the one going the opposite direction. You do all these special tricks. But yeah, I don't know why this scene stuck in my head so clearly. When we finished last night, I was like, oh, we're getting to that scene. When we finished the last talk,
this scene was a lot of fun.
I don't know why it sounds so funny. It's the strips at the airport that you just stand on. Like, that's all I can picture is just people not moving because they just stand on them and not walk. Yeah,
and they're like super connected and they crisscross and there's like intersections and.
I just, if somebody's listening to us, just thinks it sounds lame or something. Like, I get it, but trust me.
You also have to read it because like they're basically being chased and you have no idea why these guys are following them or if they're gonna get jumped. Yeah, and like.
He did a good job in that shoe store. Like, they wanted to smash. Yeah, or when they talked about the other riots.
The tension is there of like.
Yeah, they're gonna beat Daneel to death if they know he's a robot somehow, and and why not kill some people? That's never been said, right? That they actually killed any people.
I swear, I literally read
that people
2 seconds ago that if there was a riot in the kitchen.
Well, if it went down there, but I'm saying
I don't doubt that people die all the time.
If this was realistic, you would kill the shop owners, too, that are employing robots, if you're trying to be serious about this.
I think they would.
I do not endorse that for all streaming platforms.
I think they would.
I think they would, too, but I don't think that was explicitly said. But, of course, you gotta worry that they're gonna kill Baley here. But anyway, so they go through their little...
They do all this, and they finally lose him. He's like, Daneel, are we good? Daneel's like, yes. And he's like, man, you would have been a good strip runner. Mm-hmm. So they basically duck into this giant thing. What was it called? Like, power plant?
Yeah.
So they just duck in. They're like, official business. We have to be in here. Mm-hmm. So we had this cool conversation where he's like, Daneel, don't go... Stay away from the red lines. And Daneel's like, is it a question of radioactivity? Asked Daneel. Yes. Then it does matter to me. Gamma radiation destroys the delicate balance of a positronic brain. It would affect me much sooner than it would affect you. You mean it would kill you? I would require a new positronic brain. Since no two can be alike, I would be like a new individual. The Daneel you now speak to would be, in a matter of speaking, dead. Baley looked at the other doubtfully. I never knew that. Up these ramps.
Pause.
Because they're still, like, going places.
Petty point. I have great memory. Despite your attack on my honor last talk. I have great memory because I remembered this in one of the foundation points when they were on one of these worlds we were saying with the radiation. I was like, that's worse for robots, I think. Like, I think that's even worse than for people. And I was like, I don't know. And I literally said, I don't know why I think that, but I think that.
The fact that you don't remember why is why your memory is shit.
It's exactly my point, that I remember the core. I remember what you need to remember. The main idea. And I'm very proud of that. Second point.
I am proud of you.
Second point. Isn't this the same Daneel? Spoiler alert here. Hit that fast forward if you didn't listen to book 5 from Foundation. Isn't this the same Daneel doing force essence transfers into people's brains?
No, actually, now that we've read this and I understand this about... No, that's not the same Daneel.
Exactly. So what are we doing? So it's not the same Daneel. I just thought that was really interesting for... Because he's acting like it's a continuous him. Look at the specific and oh my god, wording. I gotta keep my brain continuing over these new brains.
We have to look at the specific wording.
Yeah.
But like... Was it just parts of the brain that were changed? Or did he get literally a brain transplant?
He's getting new hardware thing. He's getting whole new brains because it was advanced enough to hold all the storage.
If you take our computer and you change the RAM, the hard drive doesn't change.
Yeah.
The core of the computer doesn't change. You're just giving it more power.
But he was going to somehow meld with a hermaphroditic child.
Yes, that's a different point.
Yeah.
That was going to happen.
But at least that isn't as crazy to him.
But like talking about the brain he had, we know he had different bodies, but you could technically move the brain from one. And I know he mentioned that like changes were made.
I get your point. If the one piece is him.
Yeah, like if they just keep changing around the core of him.
We'll leave that to the listeners to debate. Yeah.
If y'all know, if not, I'm gonna have to go back to where I highlighted. But it is interesting to consider in that book.
Yeah, that, and the sense of self across 20,000 years of existence. I know it's very
robotic of me, but you actually.
No, it's true.
I need the letter.
I'm not saying it's a critique of Asimov writing either, because that might be people might think I'm trying to say that, like, he didn't remember this or he didn't think that's an inconsistency. I'm not even saying that. That Daneel, don't think of him as the same guy over 20,000 years, even though that's kind of implied in Foundation 5.
The essence, he's trying to say like the essence of him is, but...
Yeah. Without getting into Buddha-like interpretations of flame passing to the next flame. We shall continue.
So, Baley's like, so why are you telling me your most weak Achilles heel thing?
Yeah.
And he's like, Daneel turned his eyes full on his human companion. You are my partner, Elijah. It is well that you know my weaknesses and shortcomings.
It's the makings of a great buddy cop duo in the 50s, people.
They're adorable.
I don't know if it's the first. Maybe but it definitely buddy cop. So
they leave the power plant after this like heart to heart.
Mm-hmm.
They getting all cutesy. They make it back to this like loaned apartment. The apartment's described as a shithole compared to where this guy lives.
Yeah.
And they literally are like starting to like chill. He like takes his shirt off. Daneel's got like a muscular body because he has to like take his shirt off to get the food out. So I believe he does that. Yeah. So he gets the food out of his belly, which, like, he opens his chest and, like, there's, like, a food sack, like a sack for the food to sit in. He's like, empties it, and he's like, do you want it? Technically not, it's like good.
Yeah.
And he's like, no.
Just storing it for you.
I'm not hungry. Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And, like, as he gets rid of it, he's like, a waste of good food at that. Damn it. But he just can't get himself to eat it after it went into this guy's robotic mouth, down his robotic throat, and into a food sack. So they're, like, getting ready for bed, and there's, like, a ringing of the doorbell, and they're both looking at each other like, who the fuck?
Yeah, is it one of the racer buddies?
Yeah, like, who's at the door?
Have we been surrounded?
So Baley grabs his blaster. He's got it, like, ready, and he's looking through the peephole, and it wasn't a good view patch. It was small and had a distorting effect, but it was quite good enough to show Baley's youngster Ben outside the door.
Yeah, like, how the hell?
So he, like, yanks his ass in, and he's like, what are you doing here? How did you find me? And Bentley basically is like, I don't know. It was Mom. She was crying and all like that. She said I had to find you. If I didn't go, she said she would go herself, and that she didn't know what would happen. She made me go, Dad. So he, like...
Which is more odd behavior from the wife.
I literally was like, more? This is a red flag.
Yeah.
As a mother, because I can say that now.
Oh, watch out.
I am not sending my kid to go look for my husband, who may or may not be in danger, where he's like, he's told me to go sleep at my parents' house. Yeah. And he's not even staying at our house. So at this point, no one's at the house because it is so dangerous. The whole city's
hunting this guy down. Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, child, love of my life, my entire world, go find your dad. Go out into the world where they're trying to kill him. And
Don't get lost like the Londoner. Don't become a ghost in folklore. Don't get killed by the Londoner. So yeah. So they're at the.
Literally, Baley says. Or he tells his dad, no, we went to Grandma's for dinner and stayed there. I'm supposed to go back there now. I mean, as long as you're all right, Dad. And Baley says, you'll stay here, Daneel. Did you notice the exact location of the floor communo, which is like the communicator?
Yeah.
So he's basically planning to call Jezebel.
Yeah.
And
Jesse,
like,
but you might as well call it Jezebel now.
The boy's here and he's staying. He went on more calmly. You don't understand, Daneel. Among us, it is not customary for a man to send his young son into possible danger, even if it is logical to do so. Because Daneel was basically like, why don't you just send the boy to call his mom? He was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm going to go call his mom.
Yeah.
So he calls Jesse, and she's like, are you all right? You aren't in trouble? I'm obviously all right, Jesse. Now stop it. Oh, Lige, I've been so worried. What about? He asked tightly. You know, your friend. What about him? I told you last night. There'll be trouble. Now that's nonsense. I'm keeping Ben with me for tonight. You go to bed. Goodbye, dear. Click.
Giga Chad.
Shortest conversation ever. I'm like,
proper
I would have
50s
been.
Man.
And I also was like, did Asimov had to have kids, but like, why would you not be more livid, like, with your wife? Like, okay. I'm fine, okay? You knew I was fine. I told you I was going to be fine. I'm doing police work.
And we have, we can call each other.
I'm the literal cop. Yeah. I can call you as many times as I want. And you sent our son to come find me, which, by the way,
he didn't bring up the fact
wasn't even rocket science. The kid found him by calling the police office and being like, hi, I would like to know where my dad is staying. Yeah. And they're like, he's over there.
They're like, you're not part of that non-existent rumor, are you? Because he doesn't bring up to the wife that, yeah, by the way, like.
Well, I think at this point he's just mad. Like, his mind is so focused on his kid and the fact that they were chased by these guys.
Yeah. Well, that leads you to your next quote there. You read that, like, he goes to sleep.
Yeah, he goes to sleep, and he dreamed Jessie was falling into the fissure chamber of a nuclear power plant, falling and falling. Yeah. She held out her arms to him, shrieking, but he could only stand frozenly just outside a scarlet line and watch her distorted figure turn as it fell, growing smaller until it was only a dot. He could only watch her in the dream, knowing that it was he himself who had pushed her.
Yeah, so he pushed her into a fission chamber. Which is funny, they don't have fusion. They're still splitting atoms. I don't know if we ever get... I mean, they got fucking space travel. That's pretty funny. They got faster than light travel before fusion power. Anyways, listen. And he's pushing his wife into that reactor. We must call up Gustav Young, Mr. Carl.
Yes, what does Mr. Carl say?
He needs to rub one out, yeah? I don't know.
What? I felt like there was so much importance. Like the red lines were where he told Daneel not to pass.
Yeah.
Because it's like dangerous for humans to pass it. Mm-hmm. The fact that he pushed her, like, did his actions push her to do something? Or will he in the future be making a decision? Like, I think deep in his gut, he knows that she is suspicious. There's something going on where, like, at least for me, the significance of that entire dream, and like the further I read, the more significance I see in that dream.
Yeah, of course. But that's why I'm like,
I'm telling you, this book is
I'm not gonna speculate on what it means because we read more.
This book is like so intertwined. Mm-hmm. Like there are so many little things that you think are just like, oh, it just has to be for this, and then you find out like, oh, that was connected to that too.
Like good writing. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
Like this
it really is such great
for
writing.
Good writing though. I mean, like, but you would hope, I mean, even stand-up like comedy, like is a callback, like of course there should be references all throughout. And I think that's why sadly the Foundation series was kind of fading out there. It starts off strong and, you know, gets kind of weaker. So it's cool to see that, you know, the first book of the Robot series is so strong. One of the best examples of Asimov. That brings us to chapter 12. Now, I don't know. You good to keep going? What do you think?
I think we could probably cover chapter 12.
But if not in the 13, I know we wanted to get to our Mush Man, but
where's
Mush? We got too. That's way too far off. I think we should call it here.
All right, I think yeah. Let's call it here. Pick up here tomorrow.
Yeah. I know I hyped up the yeast guy. Sorry, guys. You're gonna have to.
Are you gonna remember your yeast rate?
Yeah. I actually wrote a whole note and everything. So, don't worry. It's super important for really understanding Asimov outside of the actual fiction.
Know it's going to be ridiculous. I'm going to finish this book, like, tonight.
Yeah.
Because I'm literally, okay. I think I'm at, like, 90% right now. Because after I put her down, I read a little bit. I'm like, I know that what's going to happen is I'm going to finish this book, and I'm going to turn to you, and you're going to be asleep.
Oh my God!
Yeah. I'm gonna have absolutely no one to talk to about
this. Do a Patreon exclusive rant, a solo pod by yourself in the dark, whispering. Yeah, the whisper pod.
I'm literally gonna be like, "Who can Ben, wake up!"
I know you can talk to the doggy. You can talk to Asimov's ghost and apologize for the whole attacking him when he's down.
He's getting a lot of praise.
I know. This is great. This is
and I already apologized for attacking him when he was down.
eBay. Now everybody's going to buy it. All of our billions of listeners are going to buy up our eBay. You can buy original copies of all these books and all that. I really want the original, print of this in the magazine, the Galaxy magazine thing.
Out of curiosity.
Because this is important literature. Cultural.
Are we going to watch the Caves of Steel movie?
Yeah, there's black and white Caves and Steel movies and all. I think there's radio dramas too. There's BBC radio dramas of this and Neuromancer at least. So when we get to Neuromancer,
I wouldn't mind listening to the radio drama of this.
Because I think it's like only a couple hours compared to like 7.5.
So good.
Yeah. So that'd be kind of cool. I was thinking that. That's why I'm like, these podcasts aren't just for books. Like, I respect all these media forms. There's great movies, there's great video games even. So we'll get to all of it. Damn. But I think we should call it here. We're at 61%. We finished chapter 11, so we'll be starting chapter 12 and probably finishing the book.
Leave a note somewhere so we don't have to constantly.
In one talk. What?
We always forget and then we end up.
No, I got it here. Yeah, don't worry.
Okay.
We'll take a note. We'll see you in the next one. We are very excited. I hope you guys are too. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.